Today, we are starting a brand new series called Uncensored. Yeesh. Uncensored. We're dealing with love, marriage, and sex. Yeah, that. We're going to see what God has to say about relationships. What does God have to say about singleness? But most importantly, what does God have to say to you about you? Because so many times in scripture, what we do is we cherry pick the word to find our issue in it, to find a solution that we wanted to say. Ugh. So what we end up doing is we end up cutting the text up like trail mix, finding the one little raisin that we like. Somebody's like an M&M person, I don't know. But I want to look in this text because what we're going to do is we're going to dive into, I'm sorry, but first up is the singles. Oh, usually if I say singles, woo, hooty, hoo, oh, yeah, because y'all want to do a mixer. But today we're going to walk through the progression of love and relationships. And what we end up finding here in the text is the story of a woman named Naomi. And this woman who started her life out, she had the perfect situation, marriage, 2 sons, 2 daughter-in-laws who she actually liked. That's a whole nother sermon series. But she made the decision after her husband died and she became a widow that she would go back home to Bethlehem. And the reason why is this, because she found out that there was a famine and she needed sustenance, because what she didn't know was after her husband died, her 2 sons would as well. Now, I can only imagine the emotional distress that this woman is going through as the matriarch of a family, not only now to bury her husband, but to now have to bury her sons, and now not only have to provide for herself, but 2 women who were married in. So we see here in this text that she goes through this moment of grief, which is natural. So for every widow in the room, what you're grieving through is not making you weaker, it's natural. She goes through this motion of grief and she says, I got to go home and find some food. And she tells these 2 young ladies, you need to go find someone to marry because this whole party of 3 thing ain't working. She tells these 2 young ladies that they need to go home, go where you came from. And what ended up happening was both of these young ladies said, no, we're never leaving you. We'll never get rid of you. We're always going to be with you. This statement of where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. I will follow you. But then she makes this statement of, I am a widower. My cup is empty. My storehouse no longer has anything in it. I have nothing to give you. I don't even have money to give you, let alone food. And at the moment of that, this young lady, who was also her daughter-in-law, makes this declaration, I'm out. One daughter-in-law takes her up on her offer and says, peace, I'm good off that. I don't want to struggle no more. So here's first thing first, for all of the singles in the room, your process is your process. Yeah, some of us have attached our trajectory of relationship to a celebrity, to a family member, or even to someone in the Bible. And what can end up happening is you idolize their position and you don't know what it took for them to get there. And everybody wants to be this young lady Ruth, but don't nobody want anyone around them to die. We love Ruth, but we don't want to talk about what it took for her to get to where she got. And what can end up happening is you can idolize a relationship and where they are and not know what's happening behind the doors. Yeah, everyone's couple goals probably aren't what you think. And here you are buying what they buy, trying to go on the vacation they go on, trying to find a man like that and not knowing that they're in debt. They don't like each other and that baby ain't his. I'm sorry. Okay. This is why we must be careful. Before we dive in this text, I want to create that openness, because what ends up happening is we have a fetish with fairy tales. So when we're single, we're walking through this process, trying to find a mate, not knowing that we will not settle because we think we deserve what we want. But what you want may not be what God is sending. That's the truth. When we find here in the text that now Naomi is making the decision to go home, and there's only one daughter-in-law who went with her, and her name was Ruth. And we're going to look here in this text here, turn to Ruth, and we're going to go right to chapter number 1. If you have your word with you, turn with me. But if you don't worry, we got you covered. Ruth chapter 1, we're going to go all the way to verse 22. I'm reading in the Common English Bible, and it says this: Thus Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, returned with her from the territory of Moab. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. And in chapter 3, verse 1, it continues on to say, Now Naomi had a respected relative. And her mother-in-law said to her, My daughter, shouldn't I seek security? And it goes on and it says that through her husband from the family of Elimelech, his name was Boaz. This is interesting. We have to be very mindful of who tries to set us up. If someone's trying to find you a man or a woman, but they don't have one, hey, this battery is charged. It ain't gonna die no time soon. I'm here all day. If someone's trying to set you up out of your situation of singleness and they have no connections to even see you through, why are you following the steps of a person knowing that their track record is not clean? You've had 3 divorces, but you got everything to say about marriage. We have to be mindful of who we attach our next to. So it's interesting now that Ruth is going to take the guidance of a young widow, because at this moment she's walking into something new that she's never experienced before, which means she has some skin in the game. But what happens is she says she has a respected relative. You need to have someone who's respected. And too many times in our relationships, based upon whatever generation you're in, that whether you like the bad boy, the good boy, the corporate one, the nasty girl, whoever you like, you got to find someone who is respected. Because respect shows me that you're consistent. And so many times we find people based upon their accolades. They have this job, but you don't know that they're not respected. You can have someone with 6 figures coming to them every year, not knowing that everyone at their job does not like them because they lie. You need to find an individual who is respected. Now this relative is through her husband. Isn't it interesting that the connection she's trying to bridge comes from now her pain? We have to be very mindful that we can separate the pain from the purpose. Because sometimes you will attach yourself to an individual who's using you to get through what they're going through. Oh, we talking? You ain't have no plans to get back in a relationship, but because your friend now has broken up with their man, now all of a sudden you have girls' night and now you find yourself home with someone you didn't come with. You got to watch who you attach your wagon to, because what we end up seeing here is a lot of people making situations of regret based off of places they shouldn't have been. You should have never been there, but you're there based upon your association. And we see here in this text here in verse 2, it says, Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the field so that I may glean among the ears of grain behind someone in whose eyes I might find favor. What we see here is in this moment when you are having nothing in your life, when you have no money, when you have no man, when you have no father, when you have nothing and there is a famine, what you end up doing is you put yourself in a place to get something that you hope would be dropped. Now, we gonna get real? Let's do it. Some of us stop at the threshing floor and you pick up whatever you see on the ground instead of holding out for what should be there waiting for you. And you've picked up the leftovers or someone else's mess, and now you're undoing the raveling of a situation, someone who got daddy issues and mommy issues and still trying to get off that drug situation and battling porn addiction. And now what you find is, because you took the first thing you saw, the first thing with a heartbeat and some oxygen, you found yourself connected to. Yeah, I'm always worried when I see people start new jobs and they're in a relationship in a week. How is it that you haven't even gone through orientation, but now you've changed your orientation? We're talking. All right. We have to be very mindful. It's already happening. Yeah. We have to be very mindful that you watch what you pick up. You got to watch what you pick up. Some of us have picked up stray dogs and not husbands. You fed them once and now you can't get rid of them. Have to be very mindful. So she says, I need to go glean. I got to find something because I'm hungry. And I'm hoping that someone would drop something to me. And in chapter 2, verse 3, it goes on to say this. Y'all ready? Y'all with me? It says this. It says, so Ruth left. She entered the field to gather grain behind the harvesters, and she happened to be in the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was from Elimelech's family. And in verse 4, it says, later when Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he said to the harvesters, the Lord be with you, the Lord bless you. They replied. First things first, you got to find somebody who's connected to the Lord. Your equally yokedness doesn't start when you cross over the altar. It starts when you first meet them. If they turn on their Jesus when you get connected, that means it's a chain reaction and it is based upon what they want from you. But I need you to glean Jesus. I need it to seep through your pores. And I know what you're thinking. I don't want no holy man. You say that now until someone beats on you. Okay. You need to get what you need, which means you have to see something you never saw. So we see here in this text that the first response that she ever hears from Boaz's mouth was a response of, may the Lord be with you. You got to watch who you're trying to connect to based upon their verbiage. Listen to how they talk to the people around them. Yeah. How do you talk to your homeboys? How do you talk to your coworkers? Because if you talk to them like that and you have rapport with them, I know that the honeymoon phase of the sweet nothings that you whisper in my ear soon will fade away. Anyone can turn it on. Hey, come on, y'all. If you want something bad enough, you'll put a facade on. And what ends up happening is singles sometimes find themselves in relationships with Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Because you saw the red flags when you first saw them. They was drunk when you met them, and it wasn't even 3 o'clock. You saw all the warning signs. Now you at the altar. Lord, he got to get delivered from this alcoholism. You supplied. You supplied. You went to every brunch he wanted to go. You knew what it was. You knew the demons that were attached based upon their first comment. So we see here that Boaz makes this regulation and he says, may the Lord be with you. In verse 5, it goes on to says, Boaz asked his servant who was in charge of the harvesters, whose young woman is this? Yeah, let's just stop right there. Don't chase after no one who's not asking about you. Don't do that. Don't do that. You want to be chose. Yeah, you want to be picked. And your fairy tale situation based upon your fetish of your childhood watching of movies, you want to be Cinderella, but you don't remember that Cinderella had to go through some hardships. Yeah. You always skip the bad parts and you go to the carriage, but you miss the fact that you should not be looking for no man. You should be trying to be found. And for all the fellas, your eyes should be open because you never know who's around you may be the one. And here you are trying to look over and glance over the people around you, not knowing that your nasty mouth is what's keeping you out. You talking to them like they're a homeboy, not knowing that's who God chose for you to be your wife. And there's nothing worse than you telling your sexual escapades to your next. We there. So he says to his homeboys, he says, yo, who's that woman belong to? Can I give y'all my version of the Bible? Yo, whose lady is that? Hey, I ain't never seen her around the field before, but my God. It says, who is this young lady? And in verse 6, the young man who was overseeing the harvesters answered, she's a young Moabite woman, the one who returned with Naomi from the territory of Moab. Watch who you come home with. Because when you're introduced from that place that you've never been, they're going to announce you based upon your relationships. And your homegirl has more bodies than the military, and now you're being put in the same conversation as her. And you don't even know that the man who's looking for you to be your wife, you don't even notice that now you are guilty by association. Who are you being introduced by? Yeah, you know her. She with Trish. Trish, the one who, she got more yards than the football team, but Trish got to sit down. Trish got to sit down. Nobody in here named Trish, right? All right. Father, forgive me. All right. Get in the water still. Get in the water. You got to be careful who comes with you. And in verse 7, it says, she said, please let me glean so that I might gather up some grain. And among the bundles behind the harvesters, she arrived and has been on her feet from the morning until now, and she has sat down for only a moment. You got to watch how you work while you wait. Yeah. Everyone loves this Ruth. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be a woman like Ruth in the Bible, but you skip before she was chosen by Boaz, she was working. And here you are, you have no resume because you want to be picked. We got a whole generation of pick me saints. Pick me, pay my bills. Pick me, pay for my Benihana. Pick me. I want a Birkin. Pick me. I want some red bottoms. Pick me. I want to be able to go to all these places and all these men who are pick me men because they didn't get love from their mothers. You have to work while you wait. When you are found by the one who wants you, you should have some ethic to you of working. Now, I'm not saying that means that now you are the provider of the household, but if you've never provided for a household of your own, I know you'll never respect me when I'm doing it for us. Are we there? We're there. You've never balanced a checkbook, never known what an account is to go insufficient because you've never got anything for yourself. When she found Boaz had already seen her. He had already checked her out. He knew her ethic. He knew that she hadn't sat down before a moment. He knew that she was gathering and she was gleaning because you want a hustler. I need someone to match my grind. And too many times what we do is we think that we can turn on the proverbial switch of work ethic the moment that we're found. Oh, at this moment when he chooses me, I'll clean the house. You don't know clean until you pay rent. Yeah. When you pay that rent, I don't care if you only got one cot, you gonna clean that cot. Ooh, the Lord done blessed me real good. This IKEA furniture has been great. She was working. And as she was working in verse 8, it goes on and says, Boaz said to Ruth, haven't you understood, my daughter? Don't go glean in another field. Yeah. He made it known what he was looking for. A man or a woman who wants to be in relationship with you will make it very clear they want you around them. If you have to chase them, run. Run. Your phone ain't on do not disturb that long. Run. And what ends up happening is we give marriage situations to a progress of a relationship that isn't even there yet. You giving out marriage type love. You available like you married and you ain't even met their mama yet. Oh, I'll cook dinner for you, baby. I have food on the table when you get. Why you at his house by yourself? I just love when you sit in the front row. He told her, he was very clear. He was clear with his thoughts. He was clear with his direction. He was also clear where he wanted her. He wanted him around her. He wanted to be around who he saw as a potential suitor. You don't have to be around me after I get to sleep with you. I want to be around you when we're just talking. I want to be around you when I just get to look at you. I want to be around you when I get to hear what your day was like. I want to be around you when I'm able to ask you what made you hurt. I want to be around you to hear about the scars that no one can see. If you can't be with me then, I don't want to be with you later. And too many times, can I tell you, we're going to get on this one week 3 dealing with marriage, but it doesn't start when you say I do. It does not. What you had in your singleness and what you had in your relationship and dating, what you see in those early stages after you get through that honeymoon phase, that's what it will be for the rest of your life until the Lord changes their hearts. Now all of a sudden, we don't talk anymore. You never did. You never did. You never did. Your text message thread was dry since day one. Y'all sent emojis of vegetables and fruits. Hey, Mike. You never had actual conversation. You never even knew what communication looked like between you two because you skipped all the niceness to go to the sleeping. And we see here, they was never sleeping. We see here in verse 9, it says, keep your eyes on the field that they are harvesting and go along after them. I've ordered the young men not to assault you. A man or a woman who's after you, for all the ladies, the man who's looking for you will protect you. Yes. He will protect you. Yes. He will surround you and he will make sure that the people around him respect you. Yeah. If his homeboys don't respect you, it's because he hasn't laid it down as law. Which means he has a past of sharing. Oh, it's quiet in this Lutheran church. You have to watch how people deal with you. You got to make sure that when you put me in a room with people I've never met, that you announce me well, you protect me well, but then you provide for me well. Yeah, that starts now. Because here's the reality. If you understand these principles as we walk in, you may find that the Lord may have called you to singleness. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be in a relationship. Paul makes it very clear. I wish it was for you the way it is for me, that you would not have to go through these burdens and trials as others have had to gone through in marriage. Marriage is not easy, it's work. And if you're only getting married to change your net worth or to be able to sleep with people without sin, don't do it. Get you a nice little chastity belt and give someone else the key. Don't do it. It ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. Singleness is someone's portion. Everyone was not made to be married. But if this is your calling and it is to be in a relationship, you'll see that he protected, he provided, and he announced it. In verse 10, it goes on to say, then she bowed down face to the ground and replied to him, how is it that I found favor in your eyes that you noticed me? I am an immigrant. See, the problem right there is 2023 women ain't gonna get their knees dirty. Only for other reasons. Is this thing on? All right. Hey, look, y'all can talk in church. Yeah, you do it in the car. You talk about it at your job. You talk about it through your text message. You post all these nasty things on Facebook. You think we don't see who you like on Instagram? We do. I've never seen so many married men like bikinis and models and all these strippers on their Instagram page, but all of a sudden now it's your anniversary. What? I'm sorry. I'm coming back. If you can't hear it in church, don't complain when the church starts getting all these calls about divorce and separations and we can't talk and my man ain't doing it for me. Why? Because you weren't real in the beginning. She bowed, which means she humbled herself. She humbled herself. And this is not to say that women should subject themselves to abuse, because men will take this out of context. And if any man tries to make you subject yourself in an ungodly manner by making you wait hand and foot on him, he needs to hire a maid and not a woman. I am not Mr. Belvedere, and I'm not Mr. Bentley. Get your own water. Because the problem is the moment of bowing, men take advantage of it sometimes. And at that moment, they see marriage, but no covenant. Because the moment I see you lay everything down and you humble yourself, at that moment, I see advantage. You have to be mindful. Here's the thing. Write this down. Watch how they act after you bow. Does their countenance change? Does their character shift? Do they become demanding? Do they want all of your time? At that moment, do they now ask more from you physically? Because for some people, the relationship shifts at the bow. At the bow is where the limits are tested. Because now I believe that you're willing to go further for me than you've ever gone for anyone else, because here you are lowering yourself, not knowing that I'm not doing this to subject myself to you saying you're greater than me. I'm just saying that I know there's something you have that I need. There's covenant attached to you, but I will not take abuse. And if we're real, a lot of us have gone through marriages and relationships of abuse, and we clothed it in the thought of submission. We'll deal with that in week 3. Stockholm syndrome is real, and we see here in verse 11, it says, Boaz responded to her, everything that you did for your mother-in-law after your husband's death has been reported fully to me. How you left behind your father, your mother, and the land of your birth, and came to a people you hadn't known beforehand. Give yourself some breathing room. Yeah. Everyone wants to be Ruth, but we skip over the fact that Ruth had a man before she met Boaz. Yeah. Ruth had a husband. She knew what it was to be a wife. And here you are trying to hold yourself up to a standard of something that you've never prescribed yourself to. Yeah. And here you are trying to be Ruth, not knowing the backstory. He knew who she was based upon what she did. That's what made it even more sweeter. What would happen if all your exes got in one room? If they can get off work release. All right. What would be the testimony of how you were? Would they say that you were a manipulator? Would they say that you're willing to earn the love that you say you're due? Would they say that you should receive all the care and compassion and all the lavish gifts that you cry that you need from a man when you've never even gotten someone a birthday card? What would happen if the track record of your relationships came up on the screen? And in verse 12, it goes on to say, may the Lord reward you for your deed. May you receive a rich reward from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you've come to seek refuge. Yes. The damsel in distress. And in verse 13, it says, she said, may I continue to find favor in your eyes, sir? See, the Bible got some good stuff. I don't know what people like the Bible's boring. What are you reading? You ain't never get out of Leviticus. That's what it sounds like. You all in Revelation talk about, it's so spooky. Girl, there's love stories in here. You ain't got to watch 50 Shades of Grey. Don't turn the Song of Solomon when you're married. All right. He says, sir, because you've comforted me and because you've spoken kindly to your female servant, even though I'm not one of your female servants, you still kind, even when you don't pay me. You want to step there? Let's do it. If you're sleeping for your kindness, if you believe that you only get a certain level of care based upon how you lay down, that is now transactional and not ethical. And some of us got some spiritual tax returns that we're going to be responsible for when we get to heaven, and the Lord's going to say, so how did you get your rent paid? So there's no way that you paid your student loans off that fast. We real? Sir, how did you get them Jordans? That lady is 40 years your senior. But all of a sudden you got a PS5. I just, oh, y'all gonna act like sugar mamas and sugar daddies ain't real. Ooh, y'all so saved. Y'all. Miss Parker, like y'all already know. The Lord is my shepherd and he knows. All right. Be careful of what you do to get what you want. Because here's the thing, when you begin that trait, you got to understand that you now allow and approve of that behavior. And when you were chosen, like you were a part of a harem, and what ends up happening is now all of a sudden you start getting asked some outlandish requests by an individual that you thought was kind. You want me to do what with her? And who? And you want to film it? Oh, we there. And you saw the signs when you begin the process. You saw it. You didn't heed the warning because you thought that the only love you could get was based upon what you could give. So we see here in this text, in verse 14, it says, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, come over here. Eat some of the bread and dip your piece in the vinegar. He broke bread with her. Got to be careful that someone around you as in your singleness, as you plan the date, doesn't try to skip the meal. Girl, the passion is just, you want to go to the house and just watch Netflix. No. You know that screen that popped up about 4 times. Are you still watching? We see here, I'm just cutting up there, I'm sorry. He breaks bread with her. He wants to have conversation with her that is not influenced by what she's not wearing. He wants to see her in the light. In your singleness, be aware that you find someone who wants to see you in the light. I want to see you in all of your goodness. I want to see how you interact with the waiters. I want to see how you interact with those who are doing the work for you. I want to see how you interact with the valet. I want to see how you interact when we go to the laser tag place. I want to see how you interact because that'll determine where we go next. You have to be mindful of the people who have put a plan together for all that you're going to do in a relationship when they've never spent any time with you. If we've only went on 2 dates and you talking about you, my wife, you don't even know me. You don't know me. You don't know my blood type. You don't know if I got any kids. You don't know nothing. But you want to accomplish your bucket list. And some men and women in the room only want to get married because their mama want them to. When you going to give me some grandbabies, you're going to get grandbaby right into a bad family. Keep playing games. All right. She sat alongside the harvesters and he served roasted grain to her. She ate, was satisfied here, and had leftovers. You got to be with someone who will provide enough for you emotionally that you will have leftovers. If you are in a relationship or you are seeking a life outside of singleness and you leave out of that conversation drained and you have no love to give all the people who were loving you before you met them. You have no time to render to the family that took care of you before you met them. You have no time to give to your coworkers who helped you and covered your behind when you had COVID. But now all of a sudden you boo loving and you ain't got time for no one. It's my prerogative. I'm going to do it. You got to remember the bridges that you burn when you get over. Yeah. And what ends up happening is you get smitten by love and you get smitten finding your lover and you don't even notice that you now have alienated yourself. You've isolated yourself. And now when you have some issues, who you going to call? Ghostbusters. You don't have that circle who kept you when you had your last breakup. You don't have the people around you. You want to know why? Because some of us distance ourselves from the people who will call a red flag when you see it as green. You got to be careful. Because the people around you, they see something that your lust is causing you to be blind. You're seeing them without their clothes, and they're seeing the fact that they wore the same outfit 6 days in a row because they have no home. Not because he's homeless, but because he has a bunch of lovers and he never goes home. The people around you will see those proclivities that you won't find out until you say, I do. And here you are with a marriage license now coming out of the haze. And you're, oh my gosh, you're a completely different person. No, I'm not. Same me. Different you. What we see here, she ate, she was satisfied, she had leftovers, she had emotional, mental, physical leftovers, and in 15, then she got up to glean. And Boaz ordered his young men, let her glean between the bundles and don't humiliate her. In verse 16, it goes on to say, you got me also put out some from the bells for her and leave them behind for her to glean and don't scold her. Y'all ready to jump there? In singleness, you got to be careful of how you watch the person around you who you're looking to gain a relationship with when they finally do introduce you to their parents. When they finally do introduce you to their family and friends, when you get invited to the all-foreseen Thanksgiving, where you color coordinating, y'all show up in your butter Tims. And y'all go public on Facebook, this is my boo. Watch how they let people talk to you. Watch how they let their parents talk to you. There's a difference between info seeking and grilling. You got to be mindful because what you see in that moment is what will show itself later. And we allow a lot because we think we will never be found again. You think that you'll never get chose again, so I guess I got to settle. And I can tell you this, watch how the people around them treat you. Watch how he lets people scold you. Watch that question that just comes so out of left field that it throws you back and you got to call Jesus while you holding the mashed potatoes. You want to know my body? You want to know what? Does he drop his head? Or does he speak up? Does she drop her head? Or did she say, Mama, can I talk to you for a second? Daddy, put the shotgun away. Can I talk to you for a second? Watch. Because can I be real with you? He can provide all the love in the world, but if the relationship around him is toxic, you now become a part of it. Some of us should run in our singleness, not because of anything they've done, but because of the family that they're a part of and the relationships that they refuse to distance from. At that moment, you become family and you are now in covenant with those attached to them. Put that one back. In verse 17, y'all cutting up today. I like it. Verse 17, it says that, so she gleaned in the field until evening, and she threshed what she had gleaned. And it was about an ephah of barley. And in verse 18, it says she picked it up and went into town, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and she bought out what she had left over after eating her fill and gave it to her. And her mother-in-law said to her in verse 19, oh, girl, where'd you get all that from? Where did you glean today? Where did you work? May the one who noticed you be blessed. And she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, the name of the man whom I've worked today is Boaz. May you be proud to announce the man or the woman in the presence of the person you just came from. I'm mindful of the people who feel like they need to hide their relationships because they're worried about what will come at the moment of reveal. In your relationship, be very mindful. Friends, be mindful. They may hate you and distance themselves from you because you ask all the hard questions. So you going to turn your Apple tag on? You going to let me know where you at? Text me when you get home. You going with who? So this is a double date, right? There's some people attached to you because they know your sin and they point things out because they want to protect you, not harm you. They're not limiting you. They just know what you will do at the moment of you seeing what you've prayed for. And all of a sudden, I'm just going to stay pure and chaste. I'm not going to do anything. I'm celibate until the Lord sends who he's going to send. First sign of, girl, my Instagram bio is a Bible verse. Take me. All of a sudden it goes out the window. You just see sight of what you prayed for. And all of a sudden you a city girl. I don't know. Got to be mindful of the men who've been in Bible studies every day of the week, getting through what they have fought through addiction. And you got to make sure that the brothers around you can hold you up and say, brother, maybe you should do that as a lunch instead of a dinner. You need individuals around you who will be able to report to you what is right. And in verse 20, it says, Naomi replied to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed by the Lord, who hasn't abandoned his faithfulness with the living or with the dead. Naomi said to her, this man is one of our close relatives. He's one of our redeemers. He's one of our redeemers. We're going to get into that in week 2, but he's one of our redeemers. And in verse 21, Ruth the Moabite replied, furthermore, he said to me, stay with my workers until they finish all of my harvests. And in 22, Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it's good, my daughter, that you go out with this young woman so that the men don't assault you in another field. And thus she stayed with Boaz's young women in verse 23, gleaning until the completion of the barley and wheat harvest. And she lived with her mother-in-law. She lived with her mother-in-law. She lived with her mother-in-law. Once again, she lived with her mother-in-law. At the sight of you seeing something you like, that does not mean sign a lease. Been there, done that, and got a bumper sticker. You call it domestic partnership. The Lord calls it shacking up. Oh, well, we sleep in different rooms. Yeah, okay. Okay. All of a sudden now he ain't turning the heat on until you get cold, so you got to come into bed. I'm gonna tell you all my tricks and tips of the trade. All right. I came from somewhere. Be mindful that you do not build false covenant with someone that God does not align with. And here you are acting in the play role, because now at this point you're playing Barbie Playhouse. And because he provided food for you, now all of a sudden you're a kitten who's gotten a little milk. And now all of a sudden, because she's providing for you and she took care of that meal, you got up out of your mama's basement and it's like, I'm my own man. No, you're not. No, you're not. Stay where you at until they put a ring on it. Stay where you at until they put a ring. Rent a room. Go to Hilda Barge. Go somewhere. But don't go move in with them. We're going to be plain, right? You'll see a whole nother side of them, because there's a grace that comes from marriage and covenant that you have not unlocked because you're not one. When you're married, I can put up with you leaving the toothbrush out the way that it's not supposed to be. But when I'm not married, I now begin compiling a list of why I should change roommates. I can have another you in a minute. Matter of fact, he'll be here in a minute. Baby, you must not. All right, let me stop. Let's close this thing out. We're going to be in week 2. Let's go look at this as soon as we get out of here. In chapter 3, verse 1, Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, my daughter, shouldn't I seek security for you so that things might go well for you? Going back again, be mindful of who you have around you, that they see the good that you should remain in rather than the sin that you want to get in. In verse 2, it says, now isn't Boaz, whose young women you were with, our relative? Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Isn't it funny? Naomi, she knew the tea. Hey, yo, look, I love widows, but the widows got the tea. I love it. They know what's up. They know who not to be with. They know who you should be around. They gonna tell you. Baby, don't go with that man. He got 4 wives now. Now, here you go. You ain't here for me. I heard Josephine said that at the Golden Corral that he got a child in Beulah. Not the Golden Corral. Verse 3. Let's get out of here. We're almost done. You should bathe. Put on some perfume. Wear some nice clothes and then go down to the threshing floor. Don't make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. This is for men and women. Take a shower. Hey, I don't know if I'll ever get another sermon where I can say that again. Clean yourself. Clean. You smell like you fought in 2 wars. And you've been a part of the army of the... Okay, never mind. Can I be real with you real quick as we get ready to close? Be mindful of how you present yourself to your potential mate out of your singleness, because what you do is what you will have to keep up. And you think that you bumming it up is going to mean that you can turn it up later. But I want you to know all of that stuff that you did when you were dating, he's looking for now, which is why some marriages are in a rut. Now, I'm not saying you got to wear negligee every night. But give me my shirts back. All right. She said, don't go up to him until he's finished eating and drinking. And in verse 4, as we close, it says, when he lies down, notice the place where he is lying, then go uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. Now, I looked through about 5 different versions of the Bible. I went through the Message, I went through Passion, I went through Common English, I went to New King James, I went to King James. I even went to the Amplified, and nowhere in the text did it say get in the bed with him. It didn't say that. The Bible doesn't say. It did not say get in the bed with Boaz. It said uncover his feet. Uncover his feet. You have to be very mindful that when you go into this next phase of courting, that you don't overstep your welcome. Because what you don't even notice is he did not invite her. But if she would have went too far, she doesn't know what he would have did. And you have activated some lustful desires in others based upon your willingness not to cool yourself down. It ain't sin. We got our clothes on. Okay. No, it ain't saying it didn't. I can't say that. I can't say. I'm not gonna say. Well, it's only been 6 months. I ain't trying to get canceled already. Maybe year 3. I don't know. Maybe year 3. Get a campus pastor. It says, uncover his feet and lie down. Don't lie down with him. Lie down, and he will tell you what to do. Can I be just a word of caution? When you gain access, be careful of your demands. Because the moment you see his feet, you think you can tell him what to do. The moment you see her openness in her heart and her sharing that side of herself that she's held back from you, all of a sudden now you've put on a playlist that you reserve only for Third Fridays. Everyone knows about that Silk Sheet Spotify playlist. If you don't, then you're married. You look here. Side note: turn that TD Jakes marriage playlist off. I'm like, get it ready. I don't want to hear TD Jakes when I'm married. I'm be talking about what do believers listen to? You better not turn no Fred Hammond on. There will be a weapon formed against you, and it will prosper. All right. I'm done. We gonna get in the water. See, this is what happens when you give me a week off. He says he'll tell you what to do. And in verse 5, Ruth replied to her, I'll do everything you are telling me. So in verse 6, she went down to the threshing floor and did everything just as her mother-in-law had ordered. Boaz ate and drank. He was in a good mood. He went over to lie down by the edge of the grain pile, and then she quietly approached, uncovered his legs, and laid down. Uncovered his legs and laid down. The scripture stops there. Why? Because nothing else happened. our American lustful desires of what we believe relationships should be allows our minds to wander to a place that Scripture never opened. And the story is supposed to have a bookend, but for us, that's just a new chapter. Be very mindful that you don't open up Pandora's box. And what you now have created is a soul tie based upon you having relations with an individual that you should have been having conversation. And in verse 8, as we close out today, it says, during the middle of the night, the man shuddered and turned to, woman, what are you doing here? He turned over, and there was a woman lying at his feet. Last thing, be very aware of how a man responds to you when you gain access to a place that you normally wouldn't be. If he does not seem shocked, that means someone always is there. If she does not seem shocked that you have arrived at the house at this time of night, that means she's used to people being there. This is not just a men thing. This is equality. In verse 9, he says, who are you? Which means that the lights were off. Who are you to be in here with me? She replied, I'm Ruth, your servant. Spread out your robe over your servant because you are a redeemer. He said, verse 10, as we close, may you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have acted more faithfully than you did at first. You haven't gone after rich or poor young men. Last thing. She went after what she was called to receive, not based upon her wish list. And some of us have unmeetable expectations of what a man is. You want Michael B. Jordan, but you don't even have that type of pedigree in you. You want Idris Elba. You want Beyonce. You want Meg Thee Stallion. You want all these type of people. For the older saints, you want Denzel. Denzel Mary, he don't want you. You have these figurative goals of who you want, and what ends up happening is you look over who God sends because they don't look like what you lust over. When you get the lust out of your eyes like coal in the morning, you'll see that you've skipped over about 5 potential suitors who are actually called to be with you and be for you. But because they did not meet your criteria, you looked over them. Boaz says you could have gone after any young man, whether he was rich or poor, but here you are being faithful to me. What ends up happening is she falls in love. She doesn't show up in it. We have to be mindful in our singleness that we don't show up in love, but we fall in.
Hey family, I pray that you were blessed by today's word. If you were, I want you to do this. Hit those comments up just like you're in the room and shout me down. If this has impacted your life and you wanted to impact someone else's, hit the share button, hit like, and hit subscribe. We want you a part of our E-family. If you have not yet, meet us in person in the room at 10:30 a.m. on Sundays. I know online is great, but we want to meet you and do life with you. Catch a flight, catch a train, get in the car, turn the Spotify playlist on and make a road trip out of it. But we want to connect with you. I pray that you have an amazing week, that your life is transformed, and that blessings follow you and chase you down for the rest of your life. God bless you. See you soon.